Welcome back to yet another painting night. At this point, I'm not exactly sure what it is that I think I want to paint, but I do have a certain image or longing that I want to explore in my mind. And that would be like I want to have like a sort of continuation of this idea. I don't know where I can find it, or if I can find that painting. There we go. I want to sort of replicate this, but in a much larger scene. Um, yeah, I want to try and show a a vendor along with a customer. So hopefully it works out, but perhaps that's all we can speculate for now. Just paint a customer and a vendor. Um, I'm actually thinking maybe it's better if I use one of my bigger watercolor papers here for this one. Just 1 second here. I do have a bunch of these papers that are also meant for watercoloring. They seem to be similar quality with the smaller papers that I have. And here you're gonna see a bunch of my other paintings that I've done in the past. Uh, Still trying to get into a good groove of or good familiarity when it comes to watercolor. Time will come for that one. No need to rush. I like to say that, you know, maybe with consistency, some form of excellence is guaranteed. I like to think that way. Let's just do that. Okay. All right. Now we have our paper here. Let's just try to get the camera right. At least looking right. Hmm. I think we're too close. I should have really done this setup prior to starting recording. All right. Good. Now, I've heard somewhere that whenever you're painting, you best make sure that your lights are lighter than you think and your darks are darker than you think. I guess to start off, that's the thing, I don't exactly know where to start off. Um, I guess we'll try to do an umbrella, a red umbrella. Not that big of a fan of how dirty my red is turning out here. But for this painting, maybe we can make that work for in our favor. As you can see, my palette's really dirty. Like this is yellow. Now it's looking like it's brown. And this is orange. This is also lime yellow. This is red. This is also a cooler red. But yeah. Oh well, I only have so much time to clean up. I'd rather just get down into painting right away. Let's just try to reset this, I guess. So I'm doing my lights, and maybe I'll actually try to bring in some of yellow for that one. The thing I like about recording these sessions is that I really get to have a glimpse or some sort of a record to track for when I can look back in the future on how I used to think and what my process was like. So I guess for the umbrella, I'm just gonna ghost some things here just so we can gauge how much of our items should take over the painting. So maybe here's the vendor. Actually, okay. I feel like I could have gone lighter for this color here. Because with watercolor, they always say you start with the lightest value. Alright, so there goes her umbrella. And then I think here we'll just have um, something close to black for a rod. Just to just to establish, you know, just to help me along the way with proportion. Maybe it's something like that. Okay. Look how red my glass of water is turning already. Now the next thing I have to decide is um where's my vanishing point. I like to think that if I would have a cart here, it might as well be I might as well be looking down at it, you know? Yeah, I think I'll establish that as if we're looking down on the cart. Um, let's go with gray. Okay. And for mixing colors, I really like to start off from scratch just so just so I can build that sense of familiarity whenever I'm mixing colors. That's looking gray enough to me already. Maybe we can cool it down a tad bit. All right. Good enough. Maybe lighten it up a little bit too. Now, um, cart. I think for this card, I'm not gonna try to put on too much focus here because this is not my focal point, or at least my intended focal point. So maybe just a rough coloring for this one will do. I think I'll just put some dark here while I can. Same for this side. Yeah, going back, I really like having to record these sessions. Like, yeah, they're a pain to set up, but once you get them rolling, um, it's pretty much, pretty much done once you get it set up. You don't have to worry about anything anymore. And I like that. And, it really helps me be more mindful of the things that I say and how I say them. And as you can tell, like I really have a speech impediment in a way where it's difficult for me to have a very characteristic way of saying things, such as my tonality is quite bland. It's monotonous in nature. And then I think right here we're just gonna go with the vendor here. Maybe he's ducking down, or I don't know, maybe handing out something. And then right here will be our customer. For that, yeah, I'm kind of still trying to figure out how I wanted to show that. Maybe let's start off with a brown first. And I really like that I get to recycle some of this colors from the past sessions. So I'll just lighten that up. See how it looks on paper. Maybe a little bit more lighter. Okay. It's almost water at this point, I think. Which I think I'll have him looking up to our customer here, just so that there's that sense of connectivity. And for this one, I'm putting down some red in because our our vendor is under a red umbrella, and so I like to think that that red umbrella would have something, some sort of an effect to our vendor. Maybe let's say he's handing out something to our uh, customer, and I have to decide what kind of clothing is he wearing. Usually, I would imagine an apron for sure. So I would need some sort of a black for that. So I'll just mix that one now. Um, and this dark apron was sort of an accident, which I'm honestly kind of happy how it turned out because I was intending it to be as dark as this. So um, you know, but they do say That when you try to control watercolor, then it's gonna start controlling you. So maybe it worked out in the end. Worked out for the best in the end, I guess. Let's have him. I guess he's gonna be wearing white at this point. So with a white shirt, I would expect a little bit of um, redness on that, just because due to the umbrella. It's gonna be a very subtle red that might not even be seen from this red might be the mistake here because I would have assumed this is for the shadow areas rather than the entire shirt. Yeah, that was a mistake. So it's gonna be hard to see in the camera, but there is some very, very subtle pink there. So I think what I'm just gonna do is let's just color his entire shirt that way. And then from here, we'll just have the shadows sort of look like so. Okay, and then again the skin tone, going back to that one. Now I want to be careful here because with forearms I often get lost on where to stop and where to begin and how to show it even. Okay, and I guess I don't know, maybe he's selling some type of burrito or something. So maybe that's the same color as the cart, perhaps a tad bit lighter. So I guess from this scene we can assume that there's a lot of light coming in. A lot of light. Ah, I don't like what happened there. I got a little bit too excited and too impatient that the color of the burrito mixed with the hands. So I'm still learning. It's not a lot of times that my paintings are turning out better than expected, so here and there I would tend to get excited. I would like to put some red on the skin tone here, but I'm kind of hesitant to see how that might play out, but I guess we'll just find out. Okay. Then another mistake is that now we're seeing some sort of a reversal that's happened here. What's intended for the red to be the light that's coming in is now darker than uh, the skin tone itself. So I guess the way to fix this might be just to do another pass for a layer on the skin tone, and hopefully it gets darker than the red than our red area is lighter. So yeah, I think I'll try to fix that later since it's probably still a little bit wet and I don't want to apply color to it and you know cause more havoc in it. Okay, so now I guess it's sort of established that he is holding on to something. Okay, okay, dark. Now for our customer, I'd like to sort of picture him as an office worker maybe. You know, in Philippines, I got to spend a little bit of time there for a vacation and I've always been curious what life is like over there, especially when you work in those big corporate buildings. And I can only imagine with the vast available foods that it's just so easy to settle for street foods or whatever because it's so fast and it's probably cheap and it's just available. It's everywhere. And I wish I would have experience something a little bit more like that now here in Canada. But the thing here is that, streetcars are not really as prevalent as they are. Like I've seen one on my way to work one day, but it looked kind of sketchy and dirty. um, okay. So yeah, I definitely had to pass up on that one as tempting as it may have been to, get a small feel of what my little curiosity was for what the office life is like for the Philippines. The potential, the um, the potential inconvenience food poisoning might bring is not worth. It's not worth the answer to my curiosity. And I really have a difficult time trying to mix up a skin tone for a Caucasian person, but guess let's try it here anyway. So I'm guessing he's probably facing. So we are looking up at him a little bit because this seems to be right around where our horizon line is. But let's just go. Is my skin tone light enough? Light enough, I guess. Guess I'll have him sort of looking down and thinking of how he means to pay for this. So, and then we'll put a shirt on him, maybe light blue, perhaps. Very office authentic, or very typical office color attire. I don't want to get impatient again on this, but I really want to try to put that color down for him here. Okay, so I guess we're going. So now that I've made the decision to go with this clothing folds, it would be a little bit awkward to show him as if he's grabbing something from his wallet or whatever. But I guess now the thing to do would be, I think, to just make it seem as if he's reaching for the burrito, and it didn't really look as if the um as if it's a office worker that I had imagined, but yeah, it turned out to be to look a little bit older than I would have wanted. So maybe he's an old office worker now. Um, maybe he's just trying to reach to that specific age where he can finally draw out from his 401k or something. Or here in Canada, in our cases, is RSP. So let's just get rid of that blue and get him to reach out for the burrito. And I guess another thing that I could say I like about watercolors that I don't have to be specific right away. Whereas if I were to, you know, draw from line works to communicate this hand, I would have to be specific with how he's reaching out for it, like, and oftentimes that really throws me off when I try to communicate that, especially anything to do with the hands. I'd often have some sort of hesitance to it, just because in it's naturally one of, I think, the most difficult things to draw, the hands. So something like that would be like right now it's already difficult to read like what the hand is trying to do, or like what the heck even is going on with these knuckles, right? But my intention for it is to make it out as if it's this hand here. For the pants, I guess he's just gonna be wearing khakis or something, which might be an easy color for us to mix because our yellow's already bombarded with colors that may hopefully mix for something close to a khaki. Typical typical office pants attire, I guess. No, it's looking a little bit yellowish for my liking. So I think I'm just gonna add a tad bit of red and blue on that. Um, Red to take out some of that yellowness. Then blue just to counteract the strength of that, or the what should I say, the saturation, to turn the saturation down a bit. Okay, now khaki. They say lighter, paint your lights lighter than you think, and your darks darker than you think. I'm trying to keep that in mind as best as I can. As best as I can. Okay. I'm gonna go back to that blue shirt that he has. Then go back to the khaki pants. Let's go a tad bit darker this time. Let's give him leather shoes, I guess. And for this one, I'm thinking maybe I don't really have to go as light for the bottom area here because, you know, I would assume with the way that the lighting is, he might already be he might already be producing a lot of shadow the light um is already getting blocked for, um for them to come in all of the random places. But I am still studying how light behaves, so I guess we'll find out if my theory works. Okay. Hmm. Maybe now's a good time to go for that second layer on everything, wherein we're gonna get a little bit more dark on some areas. Say for the skin tone on our vendor here, I might add a little bit more of the red that we were working with earlier. Um, I'm thinking with the color I'm mixing here, it might be too strong of a skin tone. So I'm just trying to tone it back down a little bit with maybe a cool red and a cool blue. Let's see if this will work. Now I'm not even sure if this is matching color wise. I think a lot of his colors should be red in nature. Um, a lot of his shadow colors, I believe, should be red, red-ish. Yeah, maybe this will do. Okay. Ooh, that's too much color. Pick some of that color off. Might be a good time for me to switch to a smaller brush. Get to the finer details. Trying to be mindful of um, how much watercolor is in my brush because from what I know, uh, it's another mistake that a lot of beginners make. Eh, I'm really happy with how the lighting scenario is playing out with this one. I'm just At this point, I'm just a little bit scared to push some of the values. Um, but I don't know why. I honestly don't know why. Because I think maybe I'm being a little bit too precious with it, you know? I'm being a little bit hesitant to make any bold moves that might ruin it, in my opinion. But, without risk, we don't really learn. So I have to gamble here. I have to make some bold colors that will make our subjects pop out. Because if nothing stands out, I think I failed to communicate something. I failed to communicate the transaction, the the service that's being exchanged with these two. Okay. I think the face is not yet quite convincing. This might be a good time for me to go bold here with some some more defining colors. All right, definitely more outline now. Let's just add subtle line there. Okay, maybe black. All right, happy with that. Um, I think I can now go on to the hands, maybe. Just gonna mix brown, some black there, maybe a little bit of red here. Now I see a lot of what I was saying here earlier is that the moment I start communicating something with lines is when I lose the what I was trying to communicate in the first place. It becomes such a much blurrier image or expression, I guess. Okay, now for our grandpa here. I think I'm not gonna try to meddle too much with this because right now I'm think I'm already right where I want to be for this guy here at least. For Grandpa though, there's not quite an obvious ambient lighting that affects his clothing, which or that affects his overall appearance, which kind of throws me off a bit. Hmm, trying to think here. So I think some of his shadow colors might definitely be bluish, more on the bluish side, just because of the nature of the lighting of the sky. So I think I'll go ahead with that. Maybe let's have some of the red from the umbrella affect some of Grandpa's clothing here. But I don't think it's gonna be as strong, probably. But I believe if it's strong at anywhere, it's probably gonna be strong in the darker areas. Now I think for Grandpa's facial hair, we'll go with dark blonde here. Might be even cool to try and put some um maybe facial hair on it a little bit. I think that ruined it. Maybe we'll see. I'm really having a hard time right now trying to find the right, or at least the more convincing skin tone colors for Grandpa here. Um, but we'll just keep trying, I guess. Let's do, yeah, like I'm not really all too convinced with the shadow colors for him. Uh, Maybe something like this might work. Yeah, it would be definitely hard to try and decipher what is the better working color for this skin tone, especially since I'm not of the same skin tone and I lack a lot of knowledge as to, you know, how skin tones behave under lighting. But yeah, that's the reason why I do this, so that, you know, I can find out and I can experiment what makes paintings convincing. Hey, maybe time to go a little bit more crazy here for Grandpa, especially with his outfit. Definitely want to explore more darker areas for his clothing. So sometimes I get too focused on what I'm trying to achieve that I forget there's a recording happening. Okay. Um. All right. For the cocky, let's go even darker. Even darker. Darker, darker, darker. I don't know if this is a good shadow color for the cocky, but we had to go with it. Now, I wish what I would have done here is that I wish I did explored more with the wet on wet technique to blend in some of the lesser areas that require more blending. Sorry, my brain is not braining right now. What I meant to say was that I wish I would have explored more of the wet to wet areas here, or the areas that would require to show a lot more blending, such as how the darks are transitioning from the pants top to bottom. Okay. All right. I don't think I can be mad at that. Um, could definitely work on some more finishes. Actually, let's just do that. Let's give Grandpa some eyes here. Try to zoom it in so you guys can get a better sense of what I'm looking at. Just mixing some colors right now. Okay. Now, kind of just want to get a general shadow area here. Maybe I can use recycle that gray we had earlier. Switch onto this brush or now how would I communicate that though? Maybe a dominant red shadow color. Now that I think about it, it's not really looking quite like a grandpa. It's more like a distressed middle age, uh, a depressed middle age office worker. Going through midlife crisis over here. And I'm guessing for this scenario, a lot of the shadows would radiate outwards, or a lot of the sort of slowly radiates outwards. Mm, don't want to be. I don't want to noodle too much around with it now because I'm quite pleased with how it all turned out overall. Maybe just for the boots, let's go in and color some of that a little bit different. I think for him, I'll put a little bit more of a cooler shadow. Bit of a cooler shadow. Darker shadow here in the middle for sure. Well, that just didn't work, didn't it? Dangerous game to play that one where I would directly apply the color onto onto the paper. I'm not doing that again. More shadow for the shoes here. Okay, I guess I'm done. I don't want to noodle too much around with it now. I've made the decisions early, um, especially with the bigger strokes. So a lot of the colors sort of started looking tame. I don't want to brighten up any reds on this. Well, maybe I could. Not brightening it up. I'm just adding a little bit of saturation to it, if you will. Just because I'm not really pleased with how light it is. I just got a funny idea. Why don't we why don't we give the guy some branding here, you know? It's working too hard. All right, so that should do it for this video. This is my painting of a vendor along with a customer, and he's serving him some burrito. So yeah, thank you for tuning in, and I'm very pleased with how this turned out compared to my other paintings. I don't paint my exact. I don't paint yet to where I want to be. I'm not as good as I want to be yet, but slowly taking it one painting at a time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Till then, talk to you later. Bye.